Welcome to another video here on the Critical Focus channel. Before we get started, I would like to thank all my wonderful members that support my work. Every penny goes straight into new minis, new paint, equipment and whatnot. Your support means a lot. If you are not yet a member, what you can expect from a future membership is access to the member Discord, early access to videos, member deck review, and just generally a greater influence on the content I put out. I will surely add more features to the member side of things as I progress as well. Furthermore, I would also like to mention that if you are looking to buy Warhammer merch, you can now support the channel via clicking the link provided in the description of the video to help the channel with a small but valuable kickback without any extra cost for you by making any of your purchases via the link. Lastly, don't forget to like the video. A small click for you that still means a lot for me and the elusive YouTube algorithm to get the video into a more favorable position amongst the very steep competition out there on the YouTubes. And do feel free to comment as well. I'm always interested in hearing what you have to say. Any engagement is welcome really, and I always strive to answer any comment I do get. So, finally time, after all the AOS madness lately, for another member deck review. Sorry that you had to wait a bit for this one, Anthony. But anyways, let's check this one out. Farstriders 2.0 paired with the Rimewyrm's Bite. First up, Farstriders is a 3-man Stormcast warband of Vanguard Hunters. And as any Stormcast warband, they are fairly accurate, fairly tanky, and fairly slow. They do inspire individually by making 2 different attack profiles in the same round, so it takes quite some investing and time to inspire them all. Let's check the deck out, starting with the searches as always. First up is Stormforged Vanguard. This is a pretty solid one for searching move and or charge on everybody while also being in enemy territory. A bit slow as an early draw, but even then it's not too hard really. A veteran marksman needs us to land a critical hit with a range 3+ attack. Dice dependent obviously, but with 3 dice at least on all of our hand crossbows, this will happen very reliably. Do note that you have to land the attack. You don't score it simply by rolling a crit if it's defended. Next up is Deadly to All. I like this one as there's card tech both from the faction deck and the pairing here to achieve this to a reliable degree, so no arguments here. Get moving plays very well into the elite nature of the warband with searching for having either moves on all or charges on all. All needs to have the same token though, so don't mess that up I guess. Gun Without a Trace is a search for a fighter, friend or foe being taken out of action with your power card. 1 extra glory if it's an enemy fighter and it is a damage from a domain card. We have no less than 5 cards to achieve this, plus 1 card that lets us recycle a Rimewyrm domain card. I'm just gonna go out on a tangent here while we are at it. I do think that ping at the moment is quite bonkers and needs to be restricted in some way, shape or form. The amount of ping in the Rimewyrm deck is absolutely disgusting. There, I said it. I don't think it's a very healthy meta at the moment. Anyway, that's certainly nothing against Anthony's deck build here. It looks really solid so far. And you gotta game the game. Last of the searches are Subterranean Threat for an enemy fighter being taken out of action. Not necessarily from an attack, but the fighter needs to have no move or charge, which is, I guess, a caveat that may make this card slightly weaker. Let's consider our options here, as I think this is the weak one of these cards. I do think Threatening Rumbles is pretty solid, as it only needs us to ping a fighter, friend or foe, on an objective token in enemy territory. That seems really easy with the disgusting pile of ping we have, and I honestly think I do prefer that one. Let's move into the end phases. Flash of Light is in faction 1 glory for being in an end checks in enemy territory. Simple enough for 1 glory, pretty solid. Lightning Advance is 1 glory for at least 2 friendly fighters being in enemy territory. It can actually be a bit of a stretch as a later draw, as it's not unlikely that we will be down to 1 man already in the second end phase. Let's return to this one. Without Equal needs 2 enemy fighters out of action and at least one objective being held with friendly fighters for 2 glory. A bit of a stretch early on, of course, but with this rather aggressive pairing, I don't think it's all that lofty really. Seems like a pretty solid pick and reasonable for 2 glory. Corralled like sheep is 2 glory for each enemy fighter to be in the same territory. I kinda like to be in control of the conditions a bit more, but at the same time, this condition is oftentimes just bound to occur out of pure fluke during 1 or 2 end phases during most games. So I think it's quite fine, to be honest, and it's 2 glory. Never Punished is a perfect fit for a small warband. Basically, you need to have less wounded fighters than your enemy, especially perfect for a small team with this ping build here. Solid 2 glory. Spread Out is 1 glory for no adjacent fighters, also 1 extra glory if all your guys are in non-friendly territory. Mid-zone there is fine as well. Pretty solid, really, and easy to fulfill the extra glory part there. The main part of the core oftentimes will happen, maybe just a bit rough versus stuff that likes to clump up a bit, like Exile Dead for example, or maybe Gits. But as the meta is pretty rough versus Horde warbands at the moment, with all the ping floating around, maybe it plays well into the current state of the game as well. So Lightning Advance was my only doubt here really. Let's consider our options. Nothing from the faction lot really strikes my fancy, but from the Rimewyrm deck I think Blood-Soaked Ice looks tempting in the current meta. You'll oftentimes run into other Rimewyrm pairings with a few strong fighters, and pinging all of them should be a fair breeze. Obviously a stretch versus resurrectable Horde warbands, but the one we are considering swapping out for this one is also a bit of a stretch. So I think I'd rather ramp up the total glory here with this one and ditch the Lightning Advance. On to the gambits then. Aetheric Paths is a teleport from one edge to another for the cost of a charge token. The charge token can speed up the scoring of Stormforged Vanguard and get moving, and does help us get forward if we get restricted in our board position and if we have a hard time getting into the fray. Those objectives I previously mentioned there aren't all that hard to score anyway. I'm not sure it's really that necessary, to be honest. Let's return to this one. Ceaseless Volleys is a push plus an extra dice to range 3+ attacks in the upcoming activation. Pretty sweet combo of effects there. Merciless Assault is making another range 3+ after a range 3+ attack. If we are equipped with the overcharged Boltstorm pistol, this can serve to get us inspired as well, which is neat, just apart from the fact that attacking extra is awesome on its own merits, and pinging 2 different fighters will help score us a lot of our own stuff, not least the newly included Blood-Soaked Ice. Ranger's Advance is a push 1 for up to 2 fighters, never say no to push cards. Rapid Volley is another reactionary range 3+ attack, but this is restricted to attack the same fighter you just attacked before the reaction. Can still inspire you, like I mentioned before, and yeah, extra attacks are always awesome. Raptor Strike is a restricted ping, as it needs your leader alive, because it's his bird that does the pecking of the eyes. Ideally, this should have been worded as a restricted card to Sanson, but as it stands, you can't salvage this card, which is a bummer. Still, ping is ping, and it is essential for this particular build. Heaving Ground is a domain card that damages any staggered fighter that is driven back. It suits our fight as well, as all of their range 3 attacks have stagger, so this will not unlikely see use, and as it's a domain, it plays into the sweet extra glory from the ping surge, gone without a trace. Puncturing Ice Short is a nasty card that, if played right, can be very, very damaging. You choose a fighter within a hazard hex or a feature token and ping that fighter. Then your opponent chooses a fighter that fulfills the same conditions and pings that fighter. If set up correctly, and especially late game, there might only be one fighter fulfilling the condition, which means your opponent will be forced to ping the same fighter that you chose, which is quite horrible and evil. And the fact that you might even recycle this card and use it twice is even more devious. Yeah, that's very good. Re-emergence is that same recycle domain I just mentioned. You get to recycle a domain card from the Rimewyrm bite. So yeah, these are quite strong, all of them. Yeah, like the card I just read. The right bait is another ping for an enemy fighter next to a friendly one, with added stagger shenanigans. Yep, ping, 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 ping. Unstable Footing is a domain that means stagger after super actions for every fighter, and if the fighter was already staggered beforehand, it takes damage instead. Yeah, there is stagger on all of our ranged attacks, as I said, so this is another good synergy card that pings fighters. So only Etheric Paths is a bit meh for me, and I have my eyes set on Retribution. For more squishy range 1 warband, for example, I probably wouldn't rate this, as we oftentimes would just die after taking damage, instead of having the reaction window left to use. But on this more buff warband, we will surely get damaged without dying a lot, and we will then see use for this one, especially since we have an easy time having eligible attacks with so much range 3 floating around. So even if we are driven back with our range 3 option, we can always basically attack back. It can get us inspired as well. So yeah, yet another out of sequence attack. So plays well into a lot of stuff here. Let's check the upgrades. Crackling Blade is Stagger and Grievous for range 1. Sure, not very exciting, but the Stagger is a nice synergy dealio with some other cards. Not totally necessary though. Farsighted is plus on range for range 3 plus attack actions, which on Samson Inspired means a staggering, pun intended, 5 range attack. Yes, please. Incredible Stamina is a reaction to activating to remove a move or stagger before that same activation starts. Neat little trick to be able to charge after a previous move, and for the stagger removal part to avoid taking damage from unstable footing, for example. But I think especially the move removal there is very neat. Overcharged Boltstorm Pistol is basically just a more accurate main attack, without stagger though, but with cleave. Swift Stride is +2 move. Not too shabby given fairly slow storm cost, but we do have a lot of range. So for attack's sake, it's not really essential, but for positioning, sure, doesn't hurt, I guess. Boots of Warding is valuable ping damage immunity from power cards and lethal hexes. Very handy with and against this deck pairing, which is prevalent as already mentioned. Earth Shattering Tread means other fighters treat hexes adjacent to this fighter as lethal hexes, while this fighter has a charge or move token. Nice way to set up Puncturing Ice Charge, for example. Probably other uses as well that I can't think of right now, but I can see the merits of this card for sure. Inured to Hardship is a pretty good card for a smaller elite team like this. Bit of a waste on anything more horde oriented, but yeah, heal when equipped with this card, and then heal 1 at the start of each round. Survivability could be key, especially once you're down to your last 1 or 2 fighters, but it also helps score the you have less wounded fighters objective as a nice side note. Tough Enough is ping immunity for anything except ping that will kill the fighter. Pretty solid really, especially for tougher fighters that can take a couple of hits or pings. Up for a Fight is +1 dice, while there is a persisting domain. We have 3 domain cards plus 1 card that cycles 1 back. So even if we only get 1 or 2 buffed attacks out of this card, it's pretty sweet still, especially since it's not range restricted. An Inspired Samson with Farsighted and this will be rolling 4 swords on a 5 range attack with Stagger and Grievous. Oh yeah. No real objections in the upgrade department here, so recapping, I just swapped one of the kill searches out for pinging a fighter on an objective in enemy territory instead. You can even ping your own guys if need be. Should be very doable in any case. I also removed Lightning Advance for a slightly more bold 2 glory and face there with having wounds or out of action enemy fighters. For the ploys, I ditched Etheric Step for Retribution for our 3rd reactionary attack ploy in the allotment, which is pretty wild, especially together with all the ping. Should be very dangerous. We will get to do a lot of attacks with this gang. Can't go wrong with that, I guess, and rolling dice is fun most of the time. The upgrades I left as is, and yeah, that is it for today. If you want to have your deck reviewed and looked at, sign up for membership and I'll take a look at your deck as well, giving you access to the member Discord and all that jazz. Don't forget to click all the buttons on your way out and leave a comment as well. Take care, bye.